Hello, my name is Lorraine Arams. You'll find my site at oncontractonly.com, oncontractonly.com, where you'll find informative blogs and more information regarding the services I offer corporate and nonprofit clients. My mission is to provide the right help at the right time for the right reason through customized live workshops, speaking, consulting, conflict resolution, and facilitation. As an executive director and board member, I understand the trials and tribulations in the nonprofit world. My experience working in multinational corporations and governments allowed insights like no other. I learned, too, that just because someone is good at their job doesn't mean they'll be an effective board member in the nonprofit world. Yet, building relationships in the community is essential for most businesses. Today, the topic is restructuring board committees. Does your board want to change its committee structure? Where does the board begin? It's often a tough choice because no one wants to hurt anyone else's feelings and no one wants to make mistakes which make matters worse. There is, though, a reason why a board is thinking about restructuring itself. Milton Berle said, "A committee is a group that keeps minutes and loses hours." For many organizations, it's sad but true. Committees eat up a lot of hours for committee and board members as well as staff. Many organizations have committees because they've always had them. The committee structure has seldom been challenged, even if the vibrancy doesn't measure up to expectations. Let's say the board wants to change the committee structure. How does the board begin the process? A good place to start is by dissolving all current committees and starting from scratch, identifying the real need for any particular committee. The very first question the board needs to ask is, does the board actually need committees? Or is there another way? It comes as a surprise to many people that a board can function effectively without any committees whatsoever. Committee structures came from the grassroots beginnings of organizations where the work had to be spread around the board members. There was no staff to perform such tasks as bookkeeping. A finance committee was created to do the bookkeeping, create the budget, and so on. There needed someone to take minutes and to write correspondence, so a secretary position was added, and so on. For some boards, that is still the case. There is no staff to do some of the day-to-day work. Those boards divide the work into committees. For other organizations, the growth has resulted in full-time staff, and committee work in many cases has become redundant. Anyone associated with boards for a while will have heard no report, meeting after meeting after meeting. The problem? It de-energizes the whole group because clearly the committee has no work to do which serves any purpose or are not working for some reason. Either way, the no report refrain is a clear indication that there is no need for that committee to exist. If there is some work to do, such as archiving, the work perhaps can be done by a volunteer other than a board member. Giving titles to people for the sake of a title serves no purpose. The board's purpose is much different than general volunteer work. Keep in mind, when deciding whether or not to have committees, that the board does not fall into the traps associated with formulating committees to appease certain people, to make some people feel good, or create committees because the board has no idea what else to do. Here's a quote from Richard Harkness, which may help. Avoid this: a group of the unwilling, chosen from the unfit, to do the unnecessary. Let's say the board wants to have committees for whatever reason. Think super committee. Committees which actually produce incredible results. How does this committee fit into the overall purpose of the board? the vision statement, the mission statement, and the overall strategic planning. Which committees? Make a list. Make a short list, because down the line, it'll be really important to identify which ones. And you'll avoid what these people are pondering, that their terms might be too broad, and that comes from maybe too many committees. And then the next question is, what is the purpose of this or that committee? There must be a point to spending volunteer time and staff time, as well as money and energy on this activity. Generally, the definition of a committee is a group of people volunteering, chosen, or appointed to perform a specific service or function, administer, discuss, or make reports concerning a subject on which its members are authorities. Unfortunately, that is not always the case with volunteers. After all, volunteering is as much about learning new skills as it is offering skills and talents to the organizations. Sometimes willing committee members are not authorities, and if they are, there's another issue. They hold power over others because they just have a little bit more information than somebody else. On one board, a member had a little knowledge of accounting and accounting software. The organization was small, and using paper or Excel systems would have been sufficient and allowed for volunteer learning opportunity for future board members. But he figured out that he could hold power over the board with this knowledge. The board allowed it. It gave him that little control and power he craved, but it was a disservice to the organizations. Committees with specialized knowledge can be a problem in the long run. Think succession when forming a committee. Let's think about the types of committees that you might be interested in formulating. First is the ad hoc committee. What's an ad hoc committee? An ad hoc committee is a short-term committee that has been formed for a particular service. And the range is about 3 to 6 months, and not much more than that. The next type of committee is a task force committee, and that's just an elongated ad hoc committee. And generally, they need to be available for 6 months or a year. And this task force needs to talk to a lot of people, collect a lot of data, and so on. So it takes a lot longer than an ad hoc committee. Or you think of an advisory committee. An advisory committee, well, this is my opinion. If a board is very well structured, it has all the expertise it needs to resolve the organizational issues and doesn't need an advisory committee. A board may think it looks good to have certain people associated with the group as an advisory committee. Little do they realize the enormous cost which may come with this approach and the lack of useful, practical, and tangible advice they may receive. Make an advisory committee short-term if you think you really need one. Or are you looking at standing committees? These are the most common committee structures and often exist without anyone understanding why. As mentioned before, many times committees exist with little to no purpose and are ineffective. This type of committee needs the most scrutiny and the most formalized structure to assure effectiveness, because standing committees, as the name implies, are standing. They are not dissolved after a set period of time, but continue until another review or restructuring call is made. Some of the names of committees are listed here. There are a ton more. It depends on your organization. After making this assessment, ask again, does the board need these committees? Does the board need some, all, or none of the committees on the short list? These decisions are based on understanding the organization thoroughly and how to meet the organization's needs. Remember, it's about the organization, not about the board. Board members are volunteers with limited time and energy to dedicate to a particular organization. The structure must be streamlined to assure the best possible fit. The next most important question to ask is why? It is the most singular, most important question to ask when it comes to committees. Committees can chew up a lot of time, money, and energy from the board and the staff. Prudent formation of committees is critical. Time, money, and energy are very good reasons to carefully consider why. No one committee structure fits all. Every organization has different needs. What worked very well in one organization may not work at all in another. In the end, the board should be able to complete this simple statement. The purpose of the committee is because, and because, of course, is the why, and the purpose you've defined earlier in this process. So what's next? There's a lot more work to be done to assure a great committee structure. This is just the beginning. There are other important steps to complete in committee restructuring in order for the board to be as effective and efficient as possible. It's paying now or paying later. It's your choice. Time taken now will save hours later. A good structure meets the needs of the organization and saves time, money, and energy while accomplishing the goals in the limited volunteer time available and limited resources of the organization. In my workshop, Structuring, I give boards practical tools needed to complete this process and tips on evaluation and accountability. Please do contact me if you would like to facilitate the process with your board. Visit my website. I have some articles which also may help. Ask about the fundraising opportunity I have with groups. I hope this information has helped you. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for listening.